everyone, this is Liz Easton, and I wanted to take a quick second to invite you to listen in to the PC Book Club. Wait, I need to start again. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Easton, and I wanted to take a quick second to invite you to listen to the PC Book Club, aka PCBC. Every so often, Ricardo Avila and I chat about the books that you should be reading right now. It's just like sitting on your own private book club discussion, only there's probably slightly more references to true crime and Charles Dickens. I did not write this.
We may have to re-record that anyway, because I think you just said it's just like sitting on your own private book club.
She did. That was great. Sitting on a book club. Sitting on a private book club. That's pretty racy. Sorry.
Should I try again? It's just like sitting in on your own private book club discussion, only there's probably slightly more references to true crime and Charles Dickens. So if you're looking for the class with an occasional dose of the sass, then check out the PC Book Club right here on the Popping Collars feed. Class and sass.
Love it.
I was praying to the Lord for some
Welcome, everyone, to the PC Music Diary, the Once in a While podcast here on the Popping Collars podcast empire. I am your host, Greg Knight. This is the pod where we talk about music around a theme, a genre, an artist, or an album. Who is we? It's me, Greg Knight, the voice that you hear on all of these podcasts. And with me this time around is special guest, Kyle Goodman. Welcome back, Kyle.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me once again.
Update our listeners. Where are you these days?
These days, it's sort of the same spots at Alamance Presbyterian Church in Greensboro, North Carolina, holding it down there in that particular part of the world.
Kyle, we are doing something very different this time around on the PC Music Diary. Most of our listeners will be thinking to themselves at this point, wait a second. What happened to Ricardo? Well, Ricardo is in London or something like that right now doing what he does. So I called Kyle back on because you were a great guest for us last summer when we were doing a music diary on our spiritual autobiographies. That was a great playlist. People should go back.
I really had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, that was awesome. This time around, this is what I do with the show, though. If Ricardo's ever on sabbatical or on vacation or something, I always pick a topic that I know that Ricardo would hate. And that's what we're doing this time around. We are going to be putting together a 10-song playlist of the very best themes from James Bond movies. Kyle,
Hooray!
Kyle, there's a couple of places we could go with this. Let's start with this, because honestly, we haven't done a Bond episode of Popping Collars ever. We've never talked about James Bond on
Seriously?
Popping Collars.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, what a fantastic inroad to James Bond. Just start with the music. I love it.
Exactly. I think that that's right. I think that, the music is actually kind of a defining feature of the Bond film. And I think it makes sense for us as a pod. Look, we're a pod that is looking for meaning in pop culture. And Bond isn't the deepest subject in the world, right?
No.
Spies, intrigue, girls, guns,
Explosions.
saving the day. Yeah.
Oh, cheesy one-liners, right? Don't forget the dialogue.
That's right. So maybe the reason that we haven't done an episode on Bond is because there's just not a lot of there. But first question for you, what's your history with James Bond movies? How do you come to the James Bond franchise?
Yes, it's pretty shallow, but I've seen them quite a number of times. And the last time that I really think about watching James Bond was actually during COVID when we were all cooped up. There came a point where it was like, okay, now is the time where I rewatch pretty much everything. And after you've done some of the biggies, right? You've run through Star Wars, and you've watched The Lord of the Rings for the umpteenth time, and you've caught up on whatever else you have in the on the old playlist. You think, oh, James Bond. There's a ton of James Bond. That is going to cover so much time, right? I can watch one or two of those things a day, and so I just started chronologically and plowed through the whole canon, and actually, it was pretty great. And I looked for it today and I couldn't get, because one of the things that happened in that particular era was I was like compiling best of lists, right? My favorite, ranking, favorite Bond films. And I remember what my favorites were. I remember some that I hate. I don't have the definitive ranking in mind anymore, though. So I think it's interesting with music too. I mean, some of the worst Bond films have some pretty great music, and vice
That's
versa.
true. Yeah, that's true. Because we could pick a song from a Bond film that is just absolutely horrible, but has a great song, right?
Right. But what's
That's
going to
something that
happen?
could easily happen on this playlist.
Yeah, it's a
What I
guarantee.
always think of with Bond is the Thanksgiving marathon,
Mm-hmm. Right.
which was AMC. Is that right? Was it AMC that had the
It's one of
Bond?
those. Right.
I don't know. It was one of those cable channels, and they would just show 24-hour Bond. And I remember, like, all through high school and college, in between football games and other stuff, yeah, you just have Bond running in the background on the
And,
TV.
and maybe this is a digression, but I think it's interesting about Bond that it really doesn't matter which one it is, right? They all kind of bleed together, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to follow the plot. You can be in Moonraker, and then all of a sudden you're in the Living Daylights, and you're like, yeah, it's a different guy, but it's pretty easy to tell who Bond is, and it just doesn't matter which one. It's pretty much the same,
And honestly, for those marathons, what you're hoping for is that you just happen to catch the beginning action piece,
right?
that first 10 minutes of whatever the movie is, watch that action piece play out, and then it'll hit the opening credits. Maybe you watch those, and then you usually just peace out and do something else.
Right.
Really quickly, before we start picking our songs, when you think about Bond title themes, what comes to mind for you? What does it evoke in your...
Music that was composed pretty much just to have the lyric of the title in it. Right? You take that Ian Fleming, work that's now sort of become a movie. I mean, that's sort of loose even in of itself. And just taking that idea and build a song around it, right? Rather than writing a song where we sort of started with the through line and the hook. I mean, the hook is just a title. So you have to build an entire song around, and almost not quite all, but almost all of these songs have the title as their title, or if not sharing the title, it's definitely mentioned in the song.
Yeah, certainly up until the Craig Bonds. I mean, the Craig films just have such wild titles, like Quantum of Solace and
Right.
Spectre and stuff. Like, it's hard to craft a song around some of these titles. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, there is sort of a game to working in the title. And that's when I remember having the CD of like all the Bond themes sort of, playing. And it was noteworthy that Octopussy was the one that just had a totally different title than the movie. Because it's like, all right,
They're
what does
great.
Octopussy rhyme with, right? Like, I don't know. But when I think of Bond songs, what I think about is pop music. Like, this is really pop
Mhm.
music. And the beauty of Bond is
Yeah.
that it plays out over decades, right? So we have, going back to 1963, all of these different movies. And so every time a song comes in, we're getting sort of a glimpse of what pop music looks like in that window of time when these movies are released.
Mhm.
And so I just think that that's fascinating. Like, you go from sort of big band, like bombastic themes to like 80 synth themes the 70s sort of like twinkly themes.
Don't forget Garbage.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah, it's all pop music. It's all like pop
Mhm.
musicians. And I just think that it's interesting. You get sort of a glimpse of what was happening in pop music at the time. That's why I think it's really important that people like Tina Turner and Madonna have a Bond song
Yeah.
because it identifies them as like key pop figures along the way.
Look back years from now, and I think Billie Eilish is great, but I just don't think that's going to be like the enduring like style of music. It's just kind of a niche thing. But that newest song absolutely hit that particular moment of popularity.
This PC Music Diary is going to be a little bit different from what we normally would do. So normally, we have some theme like cover songs or something, and we have just a smorgasbord of possible choices, right? When you're doing something as niche as picking your 10 favorite Bond songs when there's only, 24 movies, that means that we are likely to cross over on several of our picks. And so, therefore, instead of it being sort of a blend of my taste and a blend of your taste, it actually becomes something more akin to like a fantasy draft where
Right.
we can identify clearly the songs that would have to be on a Bond playlist, and we would probably both go for those songs. So what's going to make this interesting, I think, and what's going to be the ultimate challenge for us is that the first few songs are going to be pretty easy, and those last two songs are really going to sort of force us to think outside of the norms of what people would identify as great Bond themes, I think. So,
I think it's a good plan, and of course we don't know what each other's going to pick. So this is new as go, and before you started the recording, I'll just let everybody know that we fought about who got to have the first pick. And
we did fight
yeah.
because I'm competitive at heart and I want to win a fake draft of Bond songs.
There was no
But
coin toss. I said, I'm doing the podcast. I'm picking first because there's a clear first pick. So
there's a clear first pick. Because I am a gracious and humble host and am so accommodating to the guests that come on this pod, I will let you choose song number one, which is clearly going to be.
well, everyone can just fill it in, right? You all say it out loud. Yeah, it's Live and Let Die.
Live and let die. Live and let
There are just all kinds of reasons why this is the pick. It's just legitimately the best song, and arguably by the most iconic of all of the artists. And certainly, you can put folks like Tina Turner and Madonna up there, but not when you've got Paul. I mean, it's just there's your trump card. I think completely. It was so popular and iconic that you may be more familiar with another version of and even the fantastic one that was in the movie. Also, I think arguably, and we could go back and forth about this, the worst of the Roger Moore films, but clearly the best song. We talk about jumping the shark. Well, he actually jumped a boat through the air and then ran across crocodiles, right?
So here's the thing with Live and Let Die. I can't tell you that I've seen the entirety of Live and Let Die in one sitting. I've probably seen the entire movie, but I haven't seen the movie from minute one to minute whatever when the credits roll. I don't think.
I disagree. I think you've seen it multiple times and just so forgettable.
You're so right when you were talking about the covers for Live and Let Die. I think you and I are of an age where that Guns N' Roses cover of Live and Let Die is maybe just as front of mind as Paul's original.
I think that's completely right. And interestingly enough, like I was saying a minute ago, that a lot of songs were built around this title, and so it's sort of like the theme of how can I incorporate it into a song, and sometimes it works, sometimes maybe it doesn't. But you can forget about the Bond completely. And this song still makes sense, and people still love it. It doesn't even have to be attached film, and it's popular, and that's what the Guns N' Roses did.
Okay, so for my first pick, second overall pick in the James Bond theme draft, I am going to go much more modern. I'm going to go with Skyfall from Adele. There's a lot of things to like about Skyfall, right? It's sort of this love letter to Bond movies that came before. It's this really weird, out of time sort of Bond, right? Where it's like the Craig version of Bond was always a little strange because it was almost like a re-envisioning of the Connery Bond. And yet it sort of still had the legacy history of the Brosnan Bond and like all of that stuff. And so Skyfall sort of serves as this bridge between what we thought was modern Bond, kind of ushering in a past version of Bond by the time it's almost like we're going back in time as we're going through the movie. Yeah, I think what I like about the song, and this is only something that you can get with Adele, is that the reason that I bring up the time travel aspect to the Craig thing is that those Connery Bonds are so defined by the Shirley Bassey vocals on Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever. And even, I mean, Goldfinger, of course, obviously like affects how Tom Jones sings Thunderball. And I think even affects how Nancy Sinatra sings You Only Live Twice. I think that like it's such a lasting, it's such a distinct sound that when you have an artist as talented as Adele, you can kind of reach back into that bag and construct basically a Shirley Bassey song for Adele. And that's what I feel like Skyfall is. It's kind of like a jazzed up version of something that existed before, but in sort of modern with modern technology and stuff.
All right.
Okay, what is your second pick?
Next? Well, you've brought it up already. I had half guessed that you would have gone directly here, but I'm going to name Goldfinger.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch.
I can probably say about most of the songs that would be on my list, but I really can't remember all of the lyrics to Goldfinger, or if there are, in fact. But every time it comes up, I basically just hear Goldfinger, it's so tied to the film. Goldfinger's clearly the best of the villain. The way that sets up the plot of that to be really such about not just Bond but Gold himself, and just the connection there. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great point. This is the first time that one of the songs was about the villain of the movie, right? Okay, so here's my hot take. I'm not a big Goldfinger guy.
Okay.
This song actually wasn't on my list, and the movie, I don't know. I'm in and out on the movie a little bit. I think it's because when I think of the Connery Bonds, that storyline of him hunting Spectre. So yeah, that cat and mouse game between Bond and Blofeld, and Goldfinger sort of comes in as like this interrupting story. It's the story kind of removed from that overarching storyline that exists in the other Connery Bonds. And I just kind of find it intrusive. Plus, and this may just be me, I don't find the movies where Bond is in America to be necessarily that interesting. So this is like Live and Let Die, right? So Live and Let Die, Goldfinger.
Right.
I just feel like the Bond in America, it just doesn't work for me. Like maybe I am too trusting of Felix Leiter to keep America safe. But but I would rather see Bond in some like foreign locale rather than in Kentucky. And so I just think that I've just never been a big Goldfinger guy, but I get where you're going with the song. And Shirley Bassey is incredible on those vocals. Yeah.
Well, right. And I sort of feel like in some ways it's just Shirley Bassey holding all of that, right? In all of the iterations. You could just sort of name Shirley Bassey. And in my view, Goldfinger's her best out.
Okay, my second pick. I am picking Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon as my second pick.
Okay.
Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad for the rest. No.
This is from The Spy Who Loved Me. And the reason that I say this is because I was just looking back through the list of Bond songs. Oh, okay. So this is the second time a Bond song did not have the title of the movie. Because on Her Majesty's Secret Service, We Have All the Time in the World didn't have the title of the movie either. But what I've often heard Carly Simon say in interviews when she was asked to do this song is that she was fascinated at the fact that no one had done a theme song for James Bond, the character. No one had written sort of like an ode to Bond. And so this was her attempt to sort of do a theme that was directed to the subject of the movie. And I just thought that that was a fascinating place to start. Also, Carly Simon, just absolute brilliant songwriter. The more, it's one of those things, the older I get, the more I can appreciate people who are really good at crafting pop songs, because you think to yourself, oh, pop music, how hard is it? It's 3 chords. You just rhyme a few words. It's no big deal. It actually is hard to craft a really well-written pop song. And Carly Simon is one of the best. And the other thing too is that I really love this movie. The Spy Who Loved Me is one of my absolute favorite Bond movies. From the opening action sequence with the skiing and the parachute off the cliff, we get introduced to Jaws. We have like all of that stuff going on. The submarine car is in that movie. It's just so great. It's such a great movie, and it's such a great theme for Bond. And so Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon is my second pick.
Of course, that was on my list too. I don't know that it was coming up next, but it held an important place on my list. And I would go as far as to say that you can argue it's the best Bond. Roger Moore is not the best of the James Bonds, but I actually think this is the best film. Top to bottom, complete. And I think a lot of what happens after it is a bit derivative. At least until you get to the Craig stuff. It was a fantastic film, and it had a fantastic song. Is there a better example of a great film having a great song in the Bond canon? It just nails everything. It absolutely nails everything.
Okay, you're number 3.
All right, so I'm going to a weird place now. But I do really like it. For Your Eyes Only by Sheena Easton. I don't really really know why I like it. I know I'm supposed to have something to say here that's like meaningful. I don't really know why it is I like that song. It's not even really in an era of music or a genre that really appeals to me. I mean, with those little high-pitched, squealy, notes at the beginning, right? Why do I like that? But it's kind of haunting, and alluring, and I think it plays up. Maybe that's it. That it sort of plays up this more sensual side. The kind of more the romantic side, right? I mean, you're not ready to pick up your your gun and start shooting after you've listened to For Your Eyes Only.
I would say this about For Your Eyes Only. The reason why it stands out to me is because if you are doing a Bond marathon and sort of watching one movie after another, then you know that the opening action sequence to For Your Eyes Only ends with Blofeld being killed, like being dropped from a helicopter into like a smokestack or something, and being murdered in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And you're like, oh my God, this super villain is dead. And then here comes twinkly little For Your Eyes Only as Blofeld is falling to his death. And you're just kind of like, oh my gosh.
All right, that's all I've got for Your Eyes Only.
No, I love it. You know what? Let's just stick in the 80s then. I'm going to go with A View to a Kill by Duran Duran.
Meeting you with a view to a kill. Face to face in secret places. Feel the chill.
Not a good Bond movie. As a matter of fact,
No.
The Bond movie that not only ended the Roger Moore era, but almost ended the franchise. It was so incredibly bad that it was just like, where do you even go with Bond from here? But this is a classic example of where the song is so much better than, in my mind, than the movie. When I talk about these theme songs as being portraits or like windows on what pop music looked like at the time that they were released, this is exactly what I have in mind is, synth pop 80s style. And Duran Duran is like the quintessential band to do this, right? This MTV generation of Bond. Basically, with the exception of Wings, which is like its own thing. We just did Adele, we just did Shirley Bassey, Carly Simon, Sheena Easton. It's these lone women singing these ballads. And so that's what makes things like A View to a Kill stand out, is that it's a band kind of rocking out, singing about Bond. And that's fascinating, because it does set it apart from like all these other sort of crooning songs that we get along the way. So I'm a big fan of A View to a Kill. I wouldn't say I'm a huge Duran Duran fan, especially in the 80s. Like early 90s Duran Duran. Oh, come on. Like Come Undone Duran Duran, stuff like that. Awesome. Mid 80s, I don't know. Wasn't the biggest fan, but I do like this song. So A View to a Kill by Duran Duran is my third pick.
I sort of feel about that song the way you felt about Goldfinger. Terrible film. I agree with you that 90s Duran Duran is a lot better than 80s Duran Duran, and this is from the 80s. Just not my jam. And as a matter of fact, as I was listening back through all of these, prepping for this, I'm like, I just turned that one off.
It lives on our playlist of the 10 best Bond songs.
I've had enough of that. Was my decision. I am super glad that in our draft, some picks are Fernando Mendoza, right? I mean, it's like you're obvious, like that's Live and Let Die, and then you just kind of mix it up a little bit, right? So
that's right.
Oh, good.
Yeah. You're saying A View to a Kill is the Ty Simpson of the Bond.
That is
Bond
essentially what I'm saying. Yes. Every draft has to have one, right? I mean, you got to have something to talk about.
I love it. Okay, we're at pick number 4 for you.
Okay. All right. So I am gonna go with License to Kill.
Wow.
Once I get my sights on you, I got a license to kill, and you know I'm going straight for your heart. License to kill. Got a license.
Yeah, License to Kill. I know that one feels like a little bit out of nowhere. Gladys Knight. I like the song. I kind of like the film, actually. That one worked for me in an era of Bond where we were just still trying to figure out what it was going to be after more. And I loved I love the revenge plot, and then kind of taking a deep dive into lyrics that there really isn't a lot of depth into. It's an interesting juxtaposition, right? This song is about this license to kill, and I'm going straight for your heart, right? Like it's an interesting take and interpretation on what that might mean, but but I think it makes sense for the film, at least because so much of what I think motivated the entire plot, the revenge plot of that film, kind of a brutal film, was anger at seeing love ended right in front of your eyes, and right, I think this was a more visceral version of James Bond, and it was believable because of what he watched happen at the beginning of the film. And sometimes, and I love those opening sequences, right? Sometimes they just sort of don't matter to anything. I mean, I love that Blofeld sequence that you were talking about before, but like, does it have a lot to do with the rest of the film? No, right? But this launches the whole plot and drives the whole story. So I'm going with License to Kill, and it's because it hits you right in the heart.
I am a big Timothy Dalton Bond guy. I know
Mhm.
that a lot of people felt like it was, I don't know, that it was too violent, I think was the critique of Dalton's Bond. Like it wasn't fun. It was just kind of like I don't know, like Rambo found its way into the Bond movies or something like that. It was kind of how people thought of it. But I thought Dalton was great as a Bond, and I thought that those movies are super tight action movies. Like they're really good. You know, you're talking about a time when we had like the Van Damme movies and the Seagal movies and like all of these things were kind of floating around. This could hang with all of those sort of action films. Yeah, it was a little more serious than what we came to expect from Roger Moore, but I don't think that it's bad to change things up from one Bond to another. I remember watching Casino Royale, and there was the moment when during the parkour sequence, which I
Mhm.
don't think is the opening action. No, that's not the
It's
opening
not.
action sequence because it's Bond getting his license to kill. That's the opening action sequence of Casino Royale. But it's one of the first action pieces is Bond chasing this parkour guy through like a construction site. And there's this one moment where the guy jumps over a wall or something like that, and Bond runs through the wall. Like,
Yes.
okay, so Brosnan would never run through a wall. So this is fun. I get to see a different Bond. And I think that that's something that I really look forward to every time we transition from one Bond to another. Is like, well, what is this Bond going to be like? And I like Dalton's Bond. I like his take on the character.
At some point we were talking about music and how the Bond films tell the story of music and the era they're from. I think it's also true with the cinematic tropes as well. Like the cat and mouse Sean Connery back and forth fit the era, and then we find ourselves in the era of camp. And Roger Moore, in some ways, even defines that era. And what are you going to do after that? We watched we watched movies change, as you've already pointed out, over the course of Moore's tenure. You hit Star Wars, and all of a sudden things have to be about space. How do you make James Bond be about space? Right. Well, by the time you're adult and you're, like you said, you're in the middle of action films, and those are the things that you and I grew up like. That was our bread and butter, and this fit that perfectly. And yeah, I think you're right that also the drug plots and all of that really tied in, really really closely to that particular era of American history. So.
Yeah, I think there's something there, right? Like it's sort of a lost innocence, that comes out of the 80s. And yeah, I think that's captured well in those two Bond movies. Okay, my number 4. And I can't believe I still have songs that I picked that I was like, well, surely this song's going to be gone, by the time I get to pick number 4 or 5 on my list. But no, I still have one song left. Now I'm going to have to dig for the last one for my list, but still have one song left on my original planned out picks for this playlist, and that is Diamonds Are Forever by Shirley Bassey.
Diamonds are forever. They are all I need to please me. They can stimulate and tease me.
I think we got both of her songs, right? Yeah, Goldfinger and this. Oh, no, not Moonraker, though. She did Moonraker. That's right.
Yeah, that's not going to make it.
I don't think that we're going to get a complete set of the Shirley Bassey
we're
theme.
not.
But
Spoiler.
Diamonds Are Forever is absolutely one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite Bond movies. It's just such a guilty pleasure for me. I love this movie because the fun thing about Diamonds Are Forever is that the whole Spectre storyline pretty much wraps up for Connery with You Only Live Twice. I mean, Blofeld gets away at the end, but he's revealed in that movie. That's kind of like the culmination of those first 5 films. Absolutely. And then on Her Majesty's Secret Service, you have Kojak playing Blofeld, right? Tully Savalas. And so that it feels like a very different thing from what was happening with Connery. And so for Connery to come back and to have sort of like a standalone kind of fun spy thriller, I just thought it was great. I had such a blast with Diamonds Are Forever. And that starts with the theme song. I think that getting Shirley Bassey back was clearly something that the Bond producers wanted. They wanted to evoke that, that idea of Goldfinger and stuff like that for this return of Connery. Where Goldfinger feels like a little too much, Diamonds Are Forever feels kind of just right. It's like if I'm at a drag show and, someone's just going way far, that's Goldfinger. But when somebody dials it back to from 11 to 10, that's Diamonds Are Forever. And that's what I kind of like about this song. It's like Shirley Bassey at 10 instead of 11. So that's my pick.
That was not on my list, but it does make sense to me. How do you feel about On Her Majesty's Secret Service?
I am pro, except for the end.
Okay, I think that's fair. I share that sentiment. It's perpetually been the low hanging fruit of the Bond films, but thinking about where things go in the not too distant future, right? You've got Diamonds Are Forever, which is great. And then you're Live and Let Die, which is not great. It's a not great out. And if the whole idea was, okay, George Lazenby's Bond is just not going to work, this is not going to get us anywhere, right? Let's dive back into Connery. We've got to get Connery. It has to be Connery. Like, it's a much better choice than at least that first out and where you might take the character for Roger Moore. Though Roger Moore does dominate our list so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that has something to say more about our taste in pop music than it does necessarily the movies. It's like, if our parents were putting together a list, I bet Tom Jones and Nancy Sinatra would show up more, right? but it's our generation picking, and I think that that affects some of the song choices. Just thinking about On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I'm totally agree with you. I think Lazenby is a great Bond. Like that opening sequence is actually really fun, and I like that he talks to camera at the end of it. And,
Oh, me too.
that idea of like, were you expecting the other guy and stuff. I thought that was great. But I just think that like spoilers for a 50-year-old movie, 60-year-old movie, whatever. I just think it is really mean-spirited how it, deals with the death of his wife at the end of the movie.
Well, have we
I
rounded
think
the
you're
corner?
at number 5. Yeah, we're waiting for your 5th pick.
Waiting for my 5th pick. Well, here it is, and I feel like it's almost in some ways a little bit of a cheat, but I'm going with The Man with the Golden Gun.
Ah,
He has a powerful weapon. He charges 1,000,000 a shot. An assassin that's second to none. The man with the golden gun.
And it's just because I like it. I really like it. I said about Goldfinger that it was pretty much just one thing that stuck in my head that made me love that and Shirley Bassey. For me, The Man with the Golden Gun is it bothers to tell the story of the villain, right?
it does. But it basically outlines the plot. Yeah.
It does. It does. And I'm kind of here for that actually, right? I mean, sometimes you get those opening title sequences where you're going to see in shadow and amorphous like movement what's going to happen to the film. Well, here's just the plot of the film right there for you. And I think it's fun. And it sort of sets up a character that in some ways maybe he's a letdown at the end, but I liked what that film did with again kind of an off villain, and in some ways to me it was sort of that. It is to the Roger Moore films what I think Goldfinger was to the Connery films, and I mean it's not just because of the gold tie, though that certainly is meant to play. I think they constructed that film and in with that idea in mind, right? This is going to be the Roger Moore Goldfinger, and maybe it doesn't quite live up to it, but I think it's a good movie. One of the better Roger Moore films, and I like the song. I like the ways that it highlights who that villain is. It really tries. It tries really hard.
That's a great. I mean, it's Christopher Lee, right? So it's a great villain. It's a great villain to sing a song to, especially in the 70s. I like that idea of previewing what you're about to see. Do you remember back when we were kids in the 70s and 80s that like hour-long dramas would give you a preview of the show that you were about to watch at the
Yes.
start of the episode?
Right. I absolutely do, and it reminds me of this terrible hackneyed preacher adage of tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, right? Some of that idea I think fit what you're talking about with the shows, right? This is what you're gonna get. Here it is. Okay, let me remind you of what you got, right?
Dude, bring that back. That is my suggestion to the streamers of the world. Bring that back. Like have the preview of the show running before you watch the show. I get it. I think I understood what the mentality of it was at the time, right? Because you don't want people to change the channel.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want them to sit through the commercials. So if you show them things that are going to happen later in the episode that look really exciting, then they won't turn away from you when the commercials come on. So I get that, but I just it's so charming. I just love it. I just think that it's such a great way to start a television show. It's like, look at all this crazy shit that's about to happen. I think that's awesome.
Well, and again, we're going to wander just a hair far afield, but I wonder in the TikTok reel era that we inhabit, It I talk a little bit about this. Actually, I talk a lot about it, that we are systematically tearing down our young people's ability to consume story. I feel like I'm watching it in real time with my own daughter. And I want to push back against it as hard as I can. And, that's a fairly simple, I mean, quite frankly, very base version of a storytelling device. But you're right. Let's teach the youngsters to do that again. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, right? At least it demands some internal, coherence.
All right, my last pick for the Bond playlist, and this is one that I had to dig for. I did not originally have this on my list, but I'm going to go with "You Know My Name" from Casino Royale, sung by Chris Cornell. Here's what you need to know about Kyle and I. We were teenagers in the 90s, and so therefore Soundgarden was a big part of our lives, right? Mm-hmm. And Chris Cornell was a big part of our lives. Soundgarden was part of the grunge movement coming out of Seattle. They were big friends with like Mother Love Bone and like those Seattle groups that were up there. And especially Chris Cornell was really good friends with Andrew Wood, who was the lead singer for Mother Love Bone. And really, it was Andrew Wood that kind of started the grunge, like got the grunge movement kind of going. And it was Andrew's death from drugs that led to the supergroup tribute album that Temple of the Dog put out, which was Chris Cornell and the guys from Soundgarden teaming up with the surviving members of Mother Love Bone, and then adding Eddie Vedder, which then Eddie gets hooked up with Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard and go on to create Pearl Jam from this collaboration that they do together. What you realize when you listen back to like those Chris Cornell records, the Soundgarden records and the Temple of the Dog records, is that his voice is incredible. He was such a good singer, which isn't always true of the grunge guys, because you could growl your way or snarl your way through a lot of those grunge songs. You didn't actually have to sing. But Chris Cornell could sing. And it was true when he was in Soundgarden, it was true when he was in Audioslave, and it was true when he was on his own. And I just think that his vocals, especially, again, we're starting a new bond here with Casino Royale and Daniel Craig. And so I just remember watching that movie the first time around, and I was like, oh my gosh, they got Chris Cornell to sing the theme. And it really stands out. It's powerful and it's strong. And there's something that always sounds sad and haunting to me about Chris's voice, and especially after he died. It really sounds haunting. But I just think it's so evocative. And the reason that I'm glad that I was able to get it on the list is because this is I feel like these are my guys, right? And so when it comes to like that idea that we talked about of these songs being a window into what popular music was at the time. I mean, sure, Garbage. I mean, I feel like that was kind of a after me kind of pick. But to have one of my guys from my era of pop music that I loved being able to sing a Bond theme is just fantastic. And so I'm glad to get My Name from Casino Royale and Chris Cornell on here.
Do you think, and this ties to a number of things we've discussed, like, do you think that the Chris Cornell pick is rooted in how the filmmakers saw the new Bond, right? Did they find someone who they thought could embody a James Bond that in some ways is just going to be very different? Not that they're all not very different, but maybe in an internet troll era, one who maybe people are going to struggle with a little bit. I mean, I think maybe more so than any others, like the connection there makes sense, right? We're going to find someone with a strong, powerful, haunting presence that is both dynamic and engaging and has a very different kind of gravitas, right? Like, and so we're going to find a voice that does that, and his
Yeah.
voice does it better.
Yeah, I think that that's a great point. I think that it is. I think that there's a few things that make Cornell's vocals shocking at the beginning of Casino Royale. And keep in mind, Casino Royale starts with Bond's first murder, which basically gets him his license to kill, right? Like that's his initiation into the Double O department. And so you go straight from Bond's assassination at the beginning of that movie, his killing, I mean, not Bond's killing, but like his killing of the bad guy or whatever, straight into this song. And so that's impactful. And I think that the other thing that makes it impactful is that when you think back to the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies, all of those title themes were sung by women, which isn't bad, but it makes it stand out when all of a sudden you've just been jarred by the sort of shocking bluntness of the Craig character, and then you have this male voice come in behind it, something that you haven't experienced in many, many years on in the Bond franchise. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's a great pick because it does jar you and make you sort of start to think, wait, this isn't the Bond that I've known for the last few years now.
Do you think it's worth mentioning, as we're kind of coming to the close of this exercise, we didn't pick anything from one particular era of Bond films, and didn't really come up all that often until you just brought it up. I mean, the poor Pierce Brosnan era just doesn't have a lot to offer, at least in terms of our picks. Is there anything from that era you think we ought to mention, like as an honorable mention?
I think there are two honorable mentions that I would have. They're just not quite my song, my kind of song.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Sheryl Crow song isn't that bad. Which one is that? That's the one after GoldenEye. Tomorrow
Never Dies.
Never Dies. Yeah.
Tomorrow Never Dies.
Oh my God. I'm like sitting here like I'm going through, how I got there finally? I was thinking of the word die. And I was like, which one? It's like
There's so many.
it's one of the dies, and I can't remember.
Well, I did it already, right?
Okay, so just to get that done. So I think the Sheryl Crow Tomorrow Never Dies is good. I'm a Sheryl Crow guy. There's just something not quite hitting with that song for me, but I would put that as an honorable mention. I think that people are screaming at their stereos right now or wherever they're listening to this. How do you not have We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong? I get it. Louis Armstrong is such an acquired taste. I can appreciate what Louis Armstrong is doing from a musical standpoint and like an artistic standpoint, but just not for me, dog. You know what I'm saying? That's
Well, I'll tell you why I didn't put Sheryl Crow on my list. It's similarly to you. I like Sheryl Crow. I don't think it's one of Sheryl Crow's best songs, right? It's like compared to the rest of her work, I think this is kind of mediocre. Maybe it's not a mediocre Bond song, but it was a mediocre out for her. And maybe you can say the same thing about Louis Armstrong in that particular instance.
Okay, so the Bond playlist, Ultimate Bond playlist in the books. We have got it on Spotify. We will link it to this episode so that you can listen to our Ultimate Bond. What did we leave out? What are you like? I cannot believe these guys didn't put X song in their Bond playlist. And dear listener, let us know. Email us at poppingcollarspodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on socials. Tell us where we were wrong. We were not wrong, by the way. I can tell you 100%. I'm looking at the list of songs right now, and none of these other songs belong on the Ultimate Bond playlist. I'm just telling you right now. So you can email us if you want to. You're wrong, but you can email us with whatever it is. And so that is in the books. Kyle, thanks so much for coming back on PC Music Diary. This was fun.
Well, it absolutely was. Thanks for having me. Always appreciate it. Always a good time.
Who do you think the next Bond should be?
Why didn't I prep for that answer?
I've been holding a candle for Dev Patel for a long time, but now I think he may be aging out of it.
I think you're right. Honestly, I think at this point, someone we don't know, have never heard of before. Let's pull someone out of the ether again and make someone's career.
Okay. Well,
That's
now
why.
you just by saying that, you've guaranteed that it's going to be Harry Styles. So congratulations to Harry Styles for being the next Bond.
What a terrible choice then. And if it is Harry Styles, can we do another episode? It doesn't have to be for this part of the empire. Just have me on so we can talk about that for 30 minutes. Okay.
We will record an addendum. If it is Harry Styles, we will record an addendum. Kyle, thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll see you guys next time.
Does Harry Styles sing the theme song? If Harry
Oh,
Styles
yeah, that's
is
right.
also
Yes.
the Bond?
He would sing the theme song of his own movie. Yes, absolutely.
And does that in any way? Never mind. Good to be with you.
We're going to keep going for another hour. All right. Bye. See you later.